Hi, Lawrence.
Hi, Laurie.
Gosh, it's been a long, long time. It's been like, I think a couple months, you think?
2 months probably, yeah.
Yeah.
But we're back.
We're back again. People
Yeah.
probably thought they lost us.
They probably thought we
Maybe some hoped. So, Flat Earth Conspiracy Channel is back live, and Lawrence and I are going to catch up, and we've just even barely been communicating. My fault. My life has been one chaotic mess for the last couple of months, and so busy working, and mom fell and broke a hip, and it just goes on from there. So anyway, I hope that you have something interesting to chat about. The chances of that are probably pretty close to 100%. And people have been emailing me wondering why haven't we been podcasting from our huge podcast audience. So sorry about that. It's all my fault. So anyway, much ado about chaos. And we'll probably talk about some more chaos tonight. I did name this video, Is Everything a Lie? And I think Lawrence will concur with me that pretty much most everything is. And both from a historic point of view to are people a lie? Is Earth a lie? Is space a lie? Everything seems to just be one big fat lie, and trying to comb through all of it and cull through all of it is a really daunting task. And I get overwhelmed every once in a while, and that's another part of the reason for my break. I even took a break on Facebook. I haven't posted much of anything. I haven't been active in the group. I'm just sort of disengaged to just let life settle in just a little bit without all of the constant research and wondering and so on. So hopefully you can catch me up on what you've been researching on, Lawrence, and in our audience and listeners. Yeah. So whatever you think you've got, just start putting it out there, and I'll comment as I can.
Flat Earth research itself seems to have hit what I would call a bit of a flat spot. There's very little out there at the moment. And I've been sort of going off at a tangent, but there is a connection with Flat Earth, as is to, is there lands beyond? And I can say for sure that there must be, or if not lands beyond, realms which would still be lands. And the reason I say that is that, when you're focused on Flat Earth, you don't tend to pay much attention to what else is going on there. And there are two subjects that are trending, and the popularity of them in terms of the channels that put them out are skyrocketing. And most people tend to lag behind with what's coming out now, and flat earthers tend to be just focused on flat earth and not other stuff. But the giants depicted in the Bible, or the ones that were 2 miles high, well, let's imagine that there was a giant 2 miles high, and there were giants 2 miles high and bigger, and I'll show you the evidence for that shortly. But let's imagine that there's a giant that's 2 miles high. So I have here an apple. Now, if this apple had to be scaled up for a giant that was 2 miles high, do you know how much this apple would weigh? One apple.
No clue.
1 million tons.
1 million tons.
This apple would need to weigh 1 million tons to be the same size apple in a 2 mile high giant. And I worked out the actual weight of a 2 mile high giant, and the calculator wouldn't do it. It brought the number with an E on the end, so I had to do it manually. But there is a way to work out how much an individual would weigh. So, for example, I'm just over 6 foot tall, and what you do, you take it in pounds and you cube the height. So I'm 6 foot, 6 times 6 times 6 is 216 pounds. And I weigh roughly 216 pounds. If you were, say, 5 foot tall, then 5 times 5 times 5 is 125 pounds, which is whatever, about 9.5 stone, which is about right for somebody 5 foot tall, you know, somebody who's not carrying any excess pounds. So when you're looking at a giant 2 miles high, well, 1 mile is over 5,000 feet. So you've got 5,000 times 5,000 times 5,000. Well, when you've multiplied 5,000 times 5,000, that gives you 25 million. And then you've got to multiply that by another 5,000. There's no calculator that will do it. So you have to work it out yourself, which I did. And the weight of one of these 2 mile high giants would be 500 million tons. 500 million tons. And I worked out that just one of these giants would eat the entire food production of the earth as it is now. Obviously, in those times, the earth would be far more abundant because we've been strip mined and there's not much left of what was there originally. So let's take a look at some of these giants. So I'm going to go for the screen share, and I've put together a few photographs just so you can see some of the evidence that's there. So let's screen share. And then we'll have a little chat about it. You can ask me some questions. There we go. So there we go. Wrong page. Take that down. There we go. Titan World. So let's go down this. Is that screen? Okay. So what we've got at the top here is a body part of a giant, and these are the joints in someone's toes. In this particular picture. These are made of stone, and people say they're mud fossils. These giants got encased in mud, and it turned the bodies into stone. But I'm not 100% that these are mud fossils. They may have been actually literally turned to stone by, you know, some methodology that was available in those days. This is an island. It's in the shape of a boomerang. Yeah, a boomerang for one of the giants. This is one of the creatures in stone. This is an island, which is in the shape of a crocodile. Another island, shape of a dog. Here's one, perfect shape of a dolphin. This is how big these creatures were. Another dolphin. This is an amazing one. Look at this one here of an eagle. So I can't think this eagle would be a mud fossil. It would have had to have been literally turned to stone, but that is so obviously an eagle. You've got the two wings here and the eagle's head in the middle. And then you've got these two elephants. Now it's called Elephant Island up near Iceland. Now just look at these elephants. Now official scientists will tell you, oh, it's just by, by chance of natural erosion. But when you get a close-up of these pictures, just take a look at this elephant here and the textures of the skin with the elephant's ear and the eye sockets and everything else. They're perfect elephants. And then here's a view top down of the elephant. And it's the same as what you would see as an elephant, looking down on it from a balloon or something in the jungle. Here's another picture of an elephant, made of rock, but at one time a real elephant. I'm not too sure what that one is there that I've took. Here's one of a fish, a frog. I'll come back to this later, but the skeletons that have been found on Earth vary between 6 and 36 feet, but there are evidences ones of 100 feet. But these are all sort of interim sizes. And I have a theory as to why are we getting all these different size skeletons and why they're all getting smaller. Now, this is a giant in Thailand, and you can see the face of a woman here. Here's the head, shoulders, and the waist. So I'm going to come back to that one later because this has been, they've got predictive programming going now, and this is actually shown in Disney Disney made a movie recently, and I'll show you a clip of that somebody else has uploaded in a short while. What we've got here is a giant's foot, absolutely enormous. That's just 1 foot. Here we've got an island in the shape of a perfect hand. Now, science will tell you, yeah, it's just a coincidence, natural erosion, but that is the hand of a giant. Here we've got some divers who found a huge piece of cutlery, giant's knife. Here we've got a lizard, and you can clearly see the shape of the lizard's face and the tail and everything else. Another island in the shape of a body. Here we are, another some kind of lizard type creature. The teeth are still visible. I've just got it in a different shade of color there so you can see it. Another one, and then another lizard. Here's another one in the rocks with all the teeth. Another one with rocks, and then you've got this huge giant here. This is lying dead on the ground, and you can see the shape of the head. Here is an island which is a giant's penis and testicles. There's the testicles, there's the penis, and there's the opening to the penis at the end. Here we've got a little pig or something with spines on its back. This is Punjab. Punjab is where all the Himalayan salt is produced. Himalayan salt is crystallized blood. And if you look at the composition of Himalayan salt, it is identical to the salt in human blood plasma. It's got the same 84 minerals and trace elements. Here we've got another island, shape of a seahorse. Here we've got a sleeping giant. It just looks like a corpse lying down. I think this is called Dead Man's Island. Another island in the shape of a squirrel. Another one in the shape of a turtle. There's lots more. These are just a few. A turtle rock, a whale. There's the giant again. And here's Papua New Guinea and Java, places like that. This actually looks like a huge creature. It's going to be thousands of miles long, and it also extends towards the tail. So, the channels that are out there at the moment, if you want to actually, I'll just come out a minute. I'll go back and stop sharing and chat with you about that for a minute. There we go. There we go. Back with you. There's lots of channels up there now. If you want to go and watch a channel, one called just set up called the Dictionary of Truth, and it put a 15-minute composition of all these photographs of all these giants, which actually make up the composition of all our land masses, and it's had hundreds of thousands of views since Christmas. There's another channel which is called The Age of, let's have a look, what's it called? The Age of Disclosure. There's Mud Fossils University, and there's lots more. They're all posting good stuff. So what do you think about all these rocks that form the exact shapes of creatures that we know today, but obviously much bigger?
Well, some people would say humans have a tendency to look for shapes and to look for things that are recognizable to them. And I would concur with that. But after having done research, I guess it was last year, after No Forests on Flat Earth came out, I wouldn't be in the least bit surprised if those weren't fossilized carcasses of things, dragons and elephants and birds and whatever. So, we really have no way of knowing what happened 10,000 years ago or beyond. I mean, we just don't. All the scientists constantly are saying things like millions and millions of years ago, or they'll come right out and say, this happened 400 million years ago, as if they really have it down to within a couple million years. So, considering that it appears to me that the Earth has been remade several times, that wouldn't even argue with Genesis creation story, because it doesn't say specifically, because who could have known what the Earth was like when it was created. Even the Big Bang people couldn't say how it happened. I mean, I just recently read about an experiment that was made, putting a bunch of chemicals and organic material and water and all kinds of stuff in what they wanted to call primordial soup, and see if, given enough time, that it would create the first single-celled organism out of all of that soup. And there was no definitive answer. And so how many millions of years would you have to leave this primordial soup stewing, brewing, before it actually created something from that chaos? And it appears to me that the universe that we know is pretty chaotic. There's no real organization other than those things that already exist. So I don't know, Lawrence. Part of me wants, I'm a normal person. Part of me wants to side on the side of caution and say, I don't know, this seems like such a stretch. But the investigator in me has an open mind and says, anything's possible. So I don't know about the going around and looking for things in nature that are giant, that look like things that are in nature now that are small. I did the whole tree stump thing with you a year or so ago, and it sure does seem like some pretty definitive correlation between what looks like mountains that got flat tops or broken off tops and what could have been, should have been, maybe was a giant thing, tree, whatever. So it's an interesting area of research. And you're right, there are a lot of more people in the last year that are checking into all of this. And it's all speculation. You can't call it anything but that, really, because people are going to say, well, how can a carbon-based organism turn into a silicon-based organism? That's not possible. Well, I don't go with the not possible thing. Anything's possible because nature in itself has done some pretty supernatural things over time. So.
Okay, well, let's look at some further evidence then, Laurie.
All
so
right.
I'll tell you about this Disney film that came out.
Mm-hmm.
And first I'll show you a little tiny clip of that. And then I'll show you this island near Thailand, and they're the same. So let's just grab the screen share again. Let's have a look. Share. There we go. So I'm only going to play it for a short while. Where's it gone? Is that it? There we go. So I've got the screen share. So this is Moana. It's a Disney one. I'll stick it on full screen. We don't need any sound on it. So I'll mute it. So now there you see the creature, this big giant, yeah, and the trees to the side. Watch the giant lie down and actually form the shape of the landscape. You see it? Yeah. Yeah,
I watched this film.
Yeah. Okay. Now.
And I very obviously caught that. Obviously, it is an animation, but and
No.
at a
All
story,
right. Now,
but
here's this same sort of creature. Let's just play this for a minute.
I've been totally scoping the area out for the last 2 days, and I'm just completely blown away. And I have this massive urge to just go there. I have to go to Thailand and figure this out. You know, this could be pareidolia, coincidence, Mother Nature, just a very random, awesome shot. It could be something amazing. This could truly be something amazing. But the only way we're going to figure that part out is to actually go there and do the legwork, see this in person, and you know, report and bring it back to you guys and let you know what I find. Do you know, I am open to all possibilities right now, because I don't want to say this is for definite, because Skull Island, because this is all in Thailand and they're all very close to each other as well. And the reason it's very exciting is because this is very accessible to get to. All of these places are very tourist attractions. So it's going to be so easy to actually go to all of these places and to look at it all and to figure it all out. And the other things that are in Thailand as well is the big, massive, they look like beached up whale rocks. And they're just in the middle of this forest. And it's the whole of Thailand. It's incredible. There's just so many, many places here.
Let me just shut
lost
that.
the video.
I know, I was just going to shut it
back on
down. All right, I was going to shut that down. Took that one down. Another one
So
down.
that's from what's that channel, Lawrence?
It's called the Dictionary of Truth.
And it's just immense. If this is the remaining,
We can't see the video though.
about,
Can you find it and shut it down? Because we can't
I'm
see it.
just trying to get it. I'm just trying to get it and shut it down.
We should probably know about that.
How many
right?
windows do you have open, Lawrence?
That's it. Right.
Okay,
Okay.
so what's the name of the channel again? Dictionary of Truth?
Dictionary of Truth. So I recommend everybody to go to that channel and look at some of these images. And if you watch it, then you know there could be no doubt that the entire Earth is made up of corpses that have been turned to stone of giants and creatures of enormous magnitude. Now, I did have a look at some maps, and I found some ancient maps that depict the continents as bodies. So let's just go back and show you that, if I've still got it. There we go. Screen share again. The screen share. There we go. Share. There we go. Okay, so these are maps. You know, I think this is Europe, and it's depicted as a woman lying down. Well, why would anybody make a map like that? You know, this is going back to whatever 1600 or whatever. But they make a map of Europe as being a woman's body.
Well, or is it the Queen?
Well, the Queen, yeah. Well, it's got a crown on anyway, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Now here's another one. There's this one. It's called the Bleeding Giant of Monte Rosso, and it's on the coast in Italy somewhere. And this giant is actually bleeding. The red that you see is it's effectively iron oxide, which is what blood turns out to be when it's turned to stone. But this giant is actually bleeding. You know, but people will tell you
Looks
that
a little like you, Lawrence.
people will tell you that let's see if I can play it for a bit. Oh yeah. And this is blood, arterial blood. It's leaking out, and it's actually coming out of the feet, the blood in this creature. And you can quite clearly see that was a man. Now, because he's up on here, somebody must have turned this guy instantly to stone.
Well,
what else would it be?
I've never seen that before. I'm a little speechless on that one.
It's called the Bleeding Giant.
I mean, have these been compared to other photos to make sure they're not photoshopped?
Oh yeah, you can go there. You can go there and watch it. You can go there and see it. You can just Google.
Where is that?
It's called the Bleeding Giant of Monte Rosso. Well, I'll go to Google Images and you'll find, you know, let me get that now. Let's have a look. Google Image.
Because, I mean, that's very clearly a man's head and face.
Yeah. Okay, let's have a look. Giant of Monte Rosso. I don't know that I'm still sharing or not. I'll lose track.
So it'd be pretty tough to imagine that the Earth was a globe when creatures were that big. They it would take a lot of gravity to hold them on.
Sharing. I'll get the sharing back, and I'll show you that link again. I'll show you the pictures. You know, these are separate images of it. There we are. Hang on. Share the screen. There we go. All right, let's go to that. And where the hell is that going? There we go. So here's the pictures of it. Yeah, this is this giant. Yeah, basically this giant there was hung over this thing and then literally turned to stone. This is a giant. That's a man. Yeah, and this, you can go there and see it. It's a tourist attraction.
Well, okay. Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
Okay, so somebody said in the chat, how do we know that that wasn't created by man just for the purpose of maybe art or hoax or art?
Somebody'd have to actually go to the coast there and actually carve it out of the rocks that were there, or something else. But I mean, it's
or create it in pieces, like, you know, and erect it there. I mean, it's not like it's Mount Rushmore or anything, but so all that other infrastructure was built after to it, correct?
Yeah. Well, if it was just
the arch and the landing there and the little bridge thing and all that obviously was built by man.
Yeah.
To this rock.
Yeah, but it's been there.
I'll have to do some digging into that, Lawrence, and see what I think. I mean, you know, because I'm so skeptical of everything now, and you know, as everyone is, I would have to, you know, discount and disqualify a whole lot of questions in order to, because I mean, there's people that say Stonehenge was just made not that many years ago, and there's evidence to show that.
That's why it's Stonehenge. One of the parts of Stonehenge is called the heel stone, and it's actually a foot. It's quite obviously a foot if you look at it.
Yeah, but have you seen the photographs? Hold on, I got you stuck on you. Have you seen the photographs of what looks like a poured concrete underneath of Stonehenge? And like,
bit,
yeah.
I mean, but that could be just to misdirect people.
Well, it could be, but then the whole thing could be a misdirection. I mean, that's the part that's so darn problematic is, you know, who's zooming who here? I mean, you know, if there really were giants and there really were, the Earth is, the land now is atop old giant bodies of creatures, then okay. So what, you know, I'm not trust me, I'm not being skeptical of you going into this. That's not my issue at all. My issue is there's so many other lies that there are people who think that some of these lies were set up eons in advance just to fool everybody now. All right. Yeah. So
well, this is the heel stone, and some of the toes have crumbled away. But if you look at if you just get your foot out, if you're at home, get your foot out and point it in that direction, and you can see that has got the same shape and dimensions of your foot. But obviously, that's a much bigger foot, and that's why it's called the heel stone, because it's someone's foot, or was a foot,
or looks like a heel.
Yeah,
I don't know. You know, ever since Barack Obama a couple of years ago stopped his tour to go to Stonehenge and walked around like out of the blue, I'm sure that was planned, but not the media didn't know it was a plan. That's bugged me ever since, because it's like when they pay attention to something, then there's a reason. Just like the whole Antarctica business over the last couple of years, all the dignitaries going to Antarctica, that for what? you know, suddenly when flat Earth hit the maps.
Yeah. Well, a man who's 6 foot tall, Laurie, if he takes one step, it's roughly a meter. Yeah, it's about half your height. So if I take 2 steps on the beach and mark it out in the sand, it's about the length of my body from head to toe. These giants that were 2 mile high, if they were just walking, every stride would be a mile. So just a gentle stroll, every minute they would cover 60 miles. Yeah. Every hour they cover 3,600 miles. If they ran, they can run from one side of this earth as we know it in about an hour. So
Right.
the earth would have to be much bigger. These people were, you know, these, as far as I'm concerned, these giants they did live and were on this earth, but they must have come from somewhere else, because the earth won't be big enough to support them. You know, there won't be enough food for them.
No, well, that was one of the reasons why the giants were feedback. That's one of the reasons why your volume's just a little bit too high, Lawrence.
We'll turn it down a bit.
Okay. We wouldn't have this if you had earbuds, but no, it's just me. Okay, so now I forgot my point. Oh, about the size of the earth. Okay, so obviously they would have had more space to live in, but also my point was going to be that the giants were eating everything, and that's even written about in the Bible, about the giants started eating people and eating. I mean, they ate everything because they were so big and so ravenous all the time. And
the titans themselves would predate the Bible. You know, they'd be before
sure, because I mean, there were still giants on Earth in the Bible, but not these giants, not giants that big.
They won't be the 2 mile high ones. They'd be the ones that were 30 or 40 foot tall or something.
Exactly.
200 foot tall. Because apparently
not even that big. I don't even think there were any that big, but perhaps there were still a lot of giants, you know, and the biblical stories tell of go to kill the giants, you know, got to kill them because they're eating everything.
Well, I'm trying to draw some logic from what's going on. So as far as I'm concerned, they were 2 mile high giants. They were 100 foot giants, 200 foot giants, 60 foot, 40 foot, 30 foot, 20 foot, 12 foot, 10 foot. But they're all getting smaller and smaller. Now the Hindus have got a really fascinating, it's in their culture as that this is what's happening, and man is progressively getting smaller. So I'm just going to play a very short video which explains, because as you get smaller, the lifespan goes down. So, you know, the people in biblical times may have lived best part of 1,000 years because they were much taller. We only live a maximum of about 100 years because we're short again. And it's for this thing in Hindu saying that next time we're going to be reduced to about a foot and live about 12 years. Let's just play this short video. Hang on, let's get it up. Share the screen. I don't know if I can find it. Here we go. No, not that one. Here we go. Titan lifespans during the Yugas. So I'll make it full screen. We don't need the music because it's self-explanatory on the screen. And I'll stick it on and play it.
Average lifespan was 100,000 years for these giants.
These great big ones, yeah.
Age and height of man in 4 yugas. The 4 yugas, as per Hindu mythology: Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga. Yeah, those look like faces. Humans were gigantic, powerfully built, handsome, honest, youthful, vigorous, erudite, and virtuous. Human lifespan was 100,000 years, 31.5 feet. 100,000 years. Then 10,000, then 1,000, then 100 to decrease gradually.
Yeah. I haven't got this video with me now, but there's one with the Himalayas, and you can see all the faces of the Himalayas that, you know, of the corpses that are there that make them up. It's, you know, it's a huge subject, and there's a lot of but the amount of information is coming out, you know, that this image here, this is like, that's obviously a woman's breast, isn't it? That forms, you know, whatever that, I'm not sure where that is.
I believe that's drawing. South Africa, this one probably lived during the Golden Age. He looks like Abraham Lincoln. They should say where these locations are.
Yeah, obviously some of these faces have got eroded.
Mm-hmm. During the Treta, I'll have to look up how you say that. Average human lifespan was 10,000 years. You know, isn't it amazing the stuff you don't know because you just never had an interest, or no one ever introduced it to you or anything. And so people think they're so darn smart, and then someone else knows a bunch of stuff you don't know. It looks like he's got a king's crown on.
Yeah.
During the Vapara Yuga, 1,000 years. Well, I mean, even in the early biblical days, humans lived hundreds of years. I mean, Methuselah, Noah. So people act like that was impossible, and obviously there's some historical information that goes along with it.
All right, I'll come out of that one now.
Okay.
So I think that there were giants in recent times, in the last few hundred years, and it's been wiped from the history books.
Well, I think I agree with that. They've been wiping it from the history books for quite some time, and okay. I don't know why, but I'm leaning on that it's the religious groups that are doing the hiding, most specifically the Vatican.
Okay, here we've got these steps.
Right. We looked into all that when we started looking at this last year about the giants. And I remember, you know, doing a lot of research on all the tall steps everywhere.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just for growing food.
You know, these steps are whatever, 12 foot between each one. So you'd need to be like a 30-foot giant. Those are probably steps for a 30-foot giant. And then you've got doors. And you can find hundreds of church doors. There's the man who's, say, 6 foot tall. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That door's about 30 foot tall. And when you go inside, they've got very, very high ceilings. Make that a bit bigger. There we go. There's the door. And then you've got things like books. You know, look at the size of these books. You know, the book's as big as the man. Mm-hmm. There you go. Huge books.
Yeah, makes you wonder.
These books are only a few hundred years old. And then I don't know whether this is a real picture or not, but this is a knife that allegedly found.
Well, it looks like a knife. It could be a broken off piece of a ship, but it certainly does. I mean, that's a really strange break if it was.
Piece of cutlery, yeah. So the knife's bigger than the you know, what's
people.
That? And that knife's probably about 12, 14 foot long. It's huge. Mm-hmm. You know, so there's other evidence of extra large things. And I'm getting the impression that we're getting lots of resets on this flat Earth, and all the history's been wiped out and being recreated to make us think it's something different. And I was watching a video.
Get out of your share screen, please.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. I was watching a video by Philip Druzenim, I can't pronounce his name, and he was showing me.
Philip Druzhinin,
Yeah, he was
that we
showing.
talked to last year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was showing me all these buildings in, I think it was St. Petersburg, and it's also in other parts. It may have been worldwide, but there was obviously huge deluge and mud,
Right.
to
Mud
wipe
flood.
out several stories of buildings. And on one of his videos, I'll show it in a minute. You can actually see the bodies of the people who were caught up in the mud. So maybe everybody was killed off during that time, and they just started off with a brand new human race that was smaller, because, you know, I think they were probably 12-foot giants maybe 300 or 400 years ago, you know, which were tying with the size of the church doors and the steps and everything else. And then they just made up all the history for us. You know, there's a lot of evidence that says that when you look at some of these documents, it's got I, yeah, I, and then it's got the year. The I isn't a 1. So, you know, they've probably inserted 1,000 years into the timeline to make it all fit. You know, and that's why if you try and trace back the lineage of kings and things, they only go back 1,000 years. And yet they can give you the timeline for all the Roman emperors, you know, when they were in Britain and places like that 2,000 years ago. But the 1,000 years between then and your typical 1066, there's no history at all. It just doesn't exist. There's nothing there. It's just the time of Robin Hood and, you know, King Arthur and people like that. There is no lineage. So that 1,000 years is likely to have been fabricated.
Well, I've did some research, I don't know, a couple of years ago about them resetting the calendar, the date, and that we lost 1,000 years, and that they just moved it forward to an extra 1,000 years, and because they could ignore a lot of the things that they said, you know, like nothing happened in the Dark Ages historically. Well, why in the hell do you call it the Dark Ages? I mean, I know why, but I know why they do, but you know, so I definitely think that history timing, chronological timing has been screwed with for sure.
Yeah.
Because the advancements, you know, it's kind of one of those things. I know that people say, well, once you crack a threshold, you know, in advancement, then other advancements come on very quickly, because especially if you're talking about, you know, since the development of the computer chip. And, but if you go back to just prior to the industrial age, the beginning of, you know, creating machinery, you could pick a day any time within 1,000 years, and not a lot of advancement happened. And then all of a sudden, this advancement has happened exponentially. You know, after all, we built spaceships, went to the moon.
Yeah.
And so if you compare that, and then also if you compare population, the growth in population in the last 100 years versus the growth, you know, the growth before that, it's been exponential again. And so, but has it? Were there millions more people, billions more people here, and then they, you know, disappeared? And then, of course, someone would say, you know, how people know people, how could you wipe out millions of people and not affect the history book? Okay. Well, the average person doesn't write a history book. I mean, who's in charge of writing history books? We keep going back to like agencies like the Rand Corporation, who is in charge, for example, of creating the, you know, school curriculum for American children, American schools, and have been since they started. I'm thinking like late 40s, early 50s. It was post World War II. And so Rand corporations, it comes from R&D, research and development. That's where Rand comes from. And so it, wouldn't be that hard if you're writing the curriculum and you're writing the history books and you're making the atlases and you're, doing all of the big educational things. Wouldn't be that hard to just change it. That's why people are all balled up in the Mandela effect stuff. I mean, that's a whole nother conspiracy theory, that has picked up steam in the last year, is the Mandela effect. People say, well, I have memory of things being this way. And then someone else says, no, you must have been in a different timeline than me, because I remember, the jingle going a different way or what have you. So perhaps those are linked to the changing of history versus actually the changing of a timeline. And some people have, I think it's called eidetic memory, something like, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's a part of your brain that holds a picture image of remembering something. And it's much more solid than other kinds of memory. But, I can't argue with people who say that's not how I remember it, because I don't remember it the way they remember it, but that doesn't mean my memory isn't fallible. So, I think all of this stuff, Lawrence, is inextricably tied to each other. The false history, the flat earth, the Mandela effect, all the changing of the timeline, it's all coordinated, which is one of the reasons why so many people believe in the, sort of synthetic, what is that? What is it we looked into last year? Simulation theory. Okay. So how easy would it be to recode something? Well, isn't that actually what we're doing when we, record history? We encode the memory of what the event, how the event happened, and so on. And so, that's why that's why I titled this "Is Everything a Lie?" Because I really think everything is. And, what can you really wrap your heart and soul around if every time you think you believe something or know something, then someone else comes up with a theory that says, well, look at this. And you go, but that creates a paradox. That can't work with what I know. Well, is what you think you know actually true? Or is that just what you believe? And so it's just this yin yang thing that just keeps going in a big circle. And it does create complete and utter chaos in the minds of people. And if you want to control people's minds, that's, to me, the best way to do it, is give them no truth, give them nothing to believe in, create a dysphoria in their head that says, I think I'm just going to sit down and watch Netflix and forget the world. And I think that's mostly what everybody's doing now, save for a couple of people. I saw this one the other day.
Yeah, you can see the faces.
This is an art. This is an art piece, though, right? This is not actual.
I think it's real.
No, it's an art installation. I read about it.
Is it now? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. The mud's still there. You can see that let's move the bill. You can look at the buildings that are the several stories are covered in mud. Let's have a look. Where are we?
Yeah. Philip Druzhinin from Russia has been into this for several years now, has really done some great work on the mud flood in Russia and beyond. This right here is very interesting. This is these energy domes. And if you look around and see where they're located, go on to the next part of that where he shows the one on the Eiffel Tower.
I'm trying to move it on. There's the Eiffel. Is that the Eiffel Tower? No. Oh yeah, the Eiffel Tower. They've got those.
Yeah, those energy dome things are all around the side of it. And it's not just him, it's another guy too that talks about all the, they always talk about the dome firmament as being a dome, and look what, it's got to be that because there's so many domes everywhere. These domes were actually from what I'm understanding, they were energy creators or magnifiers or something grabbed energy out of the ether or the whatever and used the energy. Yeah, I highly recommend Philip's channel has grown really well. It started out with a couple hundred people, and I think he's over 4,000 now. Yeah, there it is, 4.1K. He's done some really great work and collaborated with some other people, but the mud flood buried the whole basement and partial first floor, many of the old buildings. People can't understand why you have to walk down to the first floor from the street level.
Yeah, there's the Eiffel Tower. So
yes,
let me free.
If you make that bigger, you can see all those dome devices up on the bottom level of the Eiffel Tower there.
And they're not there now.
Nope, they're gone.
Yeah.
So that was the Paris World Fair in 1889. And so they were there then.
Yeah.
So yeah, people should go and take a look at this video and look what he's talking about.
Okay, so I mean, we watched There Are No Forests on the Flat Earth last year, and I've concluded that there is some truth in it, but a lot of it's disinformation. So the things that they were telling us, the mesas were trees. So, for example, there's that one in Venezuela that everybody points to. So let me just show you that. There we go, Venezuela. Make that one bigger. So you've got these two trees. Well, these mesas, there's several miles long across the top. So these trees have been like 100 miles high, but they're only like a couple of miles apart. So the canopy of one would extend far beyond the tree trunk of the other. You couldn't have two of those trees closer together because they're not trees. They're the feet. They're the feet of giants. They're not trees. And the arterial, when you get these waterfalls coming out of the side, this is the arteries. Water is forced up and it comes out of the arteries. You can see the water's coming out of them. They're not trees.
That's another one of those arguments. Is it a tree or is it there could have been a canopy. Trees' canopies grow together densely all the time. I mean, in the rainforest, you can hardly see out of to the sky for... Yeah, we don't know what kind of trees they were, so I'm leaving my mind open on whether those are trees or whether those are legs of giants, because where's the rest of the parts? In that particular instance, okay, so let's just say somebody got their legs chopped off and those are the feet or the legs. Where's the rest of the body?
Probably dumped somewhere.
Because look at the picture. There's this flat land all around it with no rocks, no nothing, no other.
Yeah, they couldn't leave giants 2 miles high, or however tall they are, because they were.
Well, but I get that, Lawrence. But you understand also what I'm saying is that if you knock them down, I mean, what carried away a several mile high giant's body, leaving their feet stuck in the ground?
Yeah,
because there's no debris around the base of those two stumps, whether they're feet stumps or tree stumps, we don't know. But I mean, in other areas of the world, yeah, but most of these mesa trees, these ones that are flat top tree, giant feet, there you would think there would always be two together if they were giant's legs. So I'm just being logical there.
Well, I think the trees, I think they were all pulled out by their roots for whatever reason, for the reset, and they were ground down to dust. And all that dust is actually the sand of the deserts and the sands that we see on every beach. That's what I think happened to the trees. They were just all ground down. Because how else would you explain all the sand in a desert?
Well, I don't know, but I mean, is it the equivalent of sawdust solidified into silicon? I don't know. I mean, that's awfully small and granular. Yeah. And every color under the sun. I mean, you go to some sandy beaches and the sand / small pebbly rocks that are on there are every color of red, yellow, blue, green, gold. It's all there. White, crystalline, black. I mean, every color. So that would mean that all that would have to have mixed together. I mean, it is something very interesting to speculate about. I like thinking about that stuff myself. The problem with me is I'm the kind of person who needs a solution to new information. In other words, what are we going to do with this new information? What does it mean? How is it going to change anything? Because, unless there is some kind of definitive evidence, it's all speculation and conspiracy theory. Even though I hate that word, that's what they use. So I'm using it for that purpose, is them. If, it's one thing to be all abstract and visionary and artistic and creative in your mind to come up with what does this mean? And, but does it change anything about where do we come from and where are we going? That to me is the ultimate two questions. And I never thought about the where are we going until I got older. I've always wondered about where do we come from. But as you get older, then you start to think, where are we going? And what does life mean? And am I affecting it in any way whatsoever? And, not that I ever want to read my name in a history book or have a documentary made about me. I'm like every other human. It's a natural progression to want to leave some kind of a mark on the earth that you were ever here, and that you're not just totally vanished and forgotten and turned into a pile of sand in the desert. I mean, I'm sure there's some giant somewhere is going, damn, all I remember, they don't know anything about me, but all that's left of me is I'm a pile of sand in the desert, and there's my 2 ankles and feet stuck in the ground, and that's it. Okay. So what has to lead you to the next question is, what happened to all that and why? And then was it an experiment that went wrong? In other words, did everything grow too big? Everything had a pituitary problem, and once everything got too big, it was unsustainable on the created world. I mean, that to me would be the logical outcome is all these big things could not have inhabited this small of a space. I mean, the Earth is big, whether it's flat or a ball, it takes up a lot of area. But if things are hundreds of miles high and weigh millions of tons, hundreds of millions of tons, that's not sustainable. So either, like you said, this whole place was bigger, or it was open to other places that it's not open to now, which would be my speculation. And so when you compare that kind of information to flat Earth, it's like flat Earth kind of turns into meh, so because then it's not any more important than any of these other giant lies. Okay, so now it's the big lie game. How many lies are there? And I think all of it, everything past a few thousand years ago is up for grabs as to whether or not it's true or not. Everything.
Yeah, I know. I had another thought, because we see all these videos now about, well, not lots of videos, but people have found evidence that the ocean floors have been excavated. There's all these scrape marks, and some are a lot deeper than others. But how would you excavate beneath the water? It'd be very difficult. So maybe the excavation was done at a time when we didn't have any oceans, because you tried to excavate underwater now, you'd have severe problems, because you wouldn't be able to gather the rubble, would you? It'd just disperse in the water. You have great difficulty getting it out. Anyway, so here's another little theory. It's an experiment for people here now, Laurie. So I'm going to run this little experiment that people can. I'm going to try this experiment myself. And if you live anywhere near the sea, you might want to try it yourself. You just need a beach and a sea. I'm just going to show a little picture. Here we go. So here we've got a beach. Okay. So what we got here, when you go down, see, it's fascinating. When I go down to the beach, I'm seeing all these different types of patterns on the beach. And sometimes you'll get these sorts of ripples, and these sorts, and these sorts, and these sorts. And sometimes you'll get no ripples. It's just plain sand, perfectly level with no indentations on it. But it's the same ocean that's washed over it. So imagine that you could find this, you could pinpoint this particular section, this one in the middle here. Imagine you could pinpoint it when it's like this, and then go along with a rake and rake it all smooth, and then wait for the tide to come in again. Would it form exactly the same pattern in that place? Because I've got a hunch that these patterns we see on the beach are like fingerprints of the earth. And it's something anybody could do. You just need to find some way of measuring your way out to where this section would be. You could mark it with posts, but that might affect the water flow over it. So, but you could, you might have some other landmark that you could use to actually, measure 20 paces out, take a photograph, rake it all over, and then go back the next day or the day after and see if take another photograph and see if it comes up exactly the same. And if it does, then that's telling me something. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm sure it's going to be telling us something. Because I think these markings are like some kind of fingerprints, because I don't know how this works. Am I not here anymore? Am I out? Where's Laurie gone? She's gone. Well, shall I show you some pictures while we're waiting? If I'm still on, wait for Laurie to come back. Let's just go and show you these pictures again. There we go. Oops, am I sharing? Yeah. There we go. I don't know if Laurie can get herself locked out of her own hangout or leave me here. Are you back? Where did you go?
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Completely my everything shut down. Everything.
Yeah, I was just saying, I think the sand patterns on the beach, they may be, you know, if you could wipe them out and they came back exactly the same, that will be telling us something. There's got to be more to it.
Well, think about this. Can you see me?
Yeah.
Okay. Why am I not popping up on screen when I talk?
I can see.
It's weird.
You're on now. You're on my screen now.
Well, usually whoever's talking, it pops up. Sorry, everybody, about that. My computer everything just shut down, lost everything. So I'm glad you stayed on, Lawrence. Okay, think about this, Lawrence. I just am reading the Dan Brown book called Origin. I haven't finished it yet, but it's about whether the Earth was created or whether, you know, the Big Bang and the primordial soup and all that was what I was talking about earlier. But one thing that they gave an instance of is building a sandcastle on the beach. Okay. So the ocean does not naturally make a sandcastle on its own. Never made a sandcastle. So a person comes along and makes a sandcastle on the beach. And what happens to the sandcastle when the tide comes in?
It washes away.
Washes away. So there is nature that builds what it builds, and then there's what man builds. And nature wants sort of chaos. It doesn't want, it doesn't build things. It doesn't necessarily tear things down always, but it has a flow. Things grow and then they die and then they disintegrate and then they grow again, and there's a pattern, right? So when you talk about something like the giants, somebody, you know, they ground them up and they dispersed them. Why do that? To destroy the evidence, to seed the earth, to start again. Who ground up the giants? Do you see what I'm saying? You have to keep asking who, what, why, when, how,